Now, steep new US tariffs on steel and aluminium imports have come into effect. President Donald Trump surprised countries around the world last week by announcing he would double tariffs on metal imports to 50%. About a quarter of all the steel used in the US is imported, and Trump says the levies will provide a much-needed boost to US steel producers. Economists say tariffs on metals risk slowing US manufacturing because they raise prices for factories.
The United States is the world's largest steel importer. Donald Trump wants to change this because imported steel is putting pressure on domestic steelmakers. In March, he imposed protective tariffs on steel to the tune of 25%. Now he's doubled that to 50%.
I think you'll say every time they came in, a strong steel industry is not just a matter of dignity or prosperity and pride. It's above all a matter of national security.
Canada, Brazil and Mexico are the largest suppliers of steel to the US. In Europe, Germany is the largest steel producer. The tariffs are causing concern here. Kerstin Maria Rippel of the German Steel Industry Association said a 50% levy on steel exports is a massive burden for our industry. It will further increase the pressure on an already crisis-hit economy and will affect our steel industry substantially. Donald Trump sprung the tariff hike announcement at a sensitive time for German-US relations. Chancellor Friedrich Merz is heading to Washington on Wednesday for his first meeting with the US president. And Berlin is hoping tense relations will ease off. Trump's steel tariffs are also controversial within the US itself. While they will give domestic steel and aluminum manufacturers protection from foreign competition, other sectors like the car industry will be hit by rising costs.
Stephen Beardsley from DW Business is here to tell us more about this.
Hey.
Welcome, Stephen. So Trump is saying he wants to boost national steel production with these tariffs. He's saying that this is a great thing. Would, however, US steel manufacturers actually be able to meet the demand?
No, of course not. And aluminum manufacturers also, they wouldn't be able to, these aluminum smelters. As the report says, a lot of companies are heavily dependent on steel and aluminum imports. You have to remember that this is not just kind of a bulk metal that just sort of arrives into the U.S. These are various categories of products, from rings to slab to all sorts of things that certain countries and manufacturers in these countries specialize in, and that certain companies in the U.S. say, we are ordering these rings from this producer, and they've come to count on that for their bottom line. So this throws all of that into havoc. Now, sussing out a strategy is very difficult because on the one hand, Trump says, well, we want to encourage our domestic manufacturing. And he's lately been talking a lot more about this big acquisition from Japanese steel company Nippon Steel of U.S. Steel, you know, the major steel manufacturer there. He's been touting that and saying this will be a way to revitalize production in America, and this may be something that's sort of helping to lay the groundwork. More than likely, though, this is about turning the screws on countries as they try and negotiate deals for other tariffs that the U.S. has imposed. So there's a couple of things going on here. As always with Trump, it's really hard to suss out what the single overriding strategy is, and then the reality is, of course, always much more different. There's no way that the U.S. producers can cover that production gap anytime soon.
And what about for the US businesses that rely on steel? I mean, what is this price hike going to mean for them?
It's terrible. I mean, it's either you're going to eat that cost as a business, or you're going to pass it along to your customers, and they're going to pay more. Or a lot of businesses are going to do some combination of those two. And ultimately, at the end of the day, it means that customers will change their model. They will change what they're purchasing to try and find cheaper alternatives or to change their production. So your bottom line is going to be hit either way. So it's not what businesses want. It's bad news.
Mm-hmm. We can talk about Germany, obviously Europe's largest steel producer. First of all, how much German steel is exported to the US, and what effect is all of this going to have on Germany's steel industry?
Yeah, so the U.S. is the largest export market for German steel. It's about 1 to 2 million metric tons a year, depending on the year, but production in Germany has been going down. The biggest market overall for Germany is domestically, and that's because of the auto industry, but also within the EU, and also, again, because of the auto industry and because of construction. So it is a big deal, but it's actually not as important because of the sales that could fall through. Remember, some of these businesses in the U.S. may still be dependent on these specific products, and they may just end up eating that cost rise. So that means that imports may still continue into the U.S. The bigger deal is that it's going to create such a kind of flux in overall metals markets that a lot of that material that was going into the U.S. or going into Canada and Mexico, where it comes into the U.S. for the auto industry, for example, that will look for other markets to go into. And that means also in Europe. So steel manufacturers here in Germany have said about this tariff raise, they said they're not as worried about the lost market in the U.S. as they are about the secondary effects from steel coming in from Turkey, coming in from China, coming in from other places, and outcompeting them. On top of that, this is an industry that was already in trouble before Trump came along. High costs here, the auto industry really facing a tough time. That's one of their major customers. So they were already facing problems. This is going to increase pressure on politicians in Europe and in Germany to take measures that would then make it easier for them to produce, chief among them, lowering energy costs.
We're going to have to leave it there. But Stephen Beardsley from DW Business, thank you so much for clarifying all of that for us.